It's time now to move on to taking a look at our decision-making exercise here for Coasts, and we're coming back into this website that you've been using before. Before we get into the GIS map, I want just to bring to mind a few things that you'll need to remember about this. The first thing is the nature of the decision-making exercise, how the DME is remarkably similar to Love Island. Now, in case you're missing your Love Island fix right now, here's a little bit reminder of last year's glorious season. I did watch one of them once so that I could prepare this little analogy for you. That's an hour of my life I'm never getting back again. But anyway, this is what I discovered. Love Island is all about choosing, and it's all about looking, first of all, at your success criteria, what it is that you're looking for in your ideal partner. You consider your choices, and then once you've considered them, you make your decision. But the very important thing is that you need to justify that decision to others, because you don't want to come across as a nasty so-and-so. Oh, it's such a hard decision for me. You're so good. You're so wonderful. It's not about you. It's all about me. That kind of thing, because you need to justify your choice. Now, strangely enough, that turns out to be remarkably similar to your decision-making exercise, where you've got to weigh up your success criteria. You're going to be given options to look at. You need to make a choice. You will not make some people happy, so you better justify it. So what are some of those things that you've got to take into consideration for your success criteria, considering your choices? Let's go back in a little bit here quickly to our shoreline management plan, the slides that we looked at. And there's, my neighbour has just turned on the lawnmower, so I'm going to pause this and go and close the window. And we're back. So the shoreline management plan is a framework for decision making. Right? This is what you do in order to look at your success criteria and make your choices. And we looked at three broad areas of that. Now, if you're looking at that going, this doesn't really ring many bells for me, before you go any further, go back and watch those videos again. It is important that you get this into your head. The videos guide you through this whole slides presentation to give you a real sense of the context of this, of what we're looking at. But what I want to do at this point is just to remind you of some of the key things and point you in the direction of some of the things that we're going to be doing today. So you're going to be looking at the factors of flooding and erosion that are taking place in around England, and particularly in North Norfolk, which is where we're going to be focusing on. Then from that, you need to be looking at your preferred policy approaches. There are two broad factors to consider. Do you remember what CBA stands for? Cost, benefit, analysis. Cost benefit analysis. Do you remember what the two things are that are weighed up in a CBA? Does the value of what's being protected outweigh the cost of building and indeed maintaining defences? If the answer to that question is no, then you will probably not be recommending defences in that particular location. Cost benefit analysis. Do you remember what the second set of factors is? EIA, which stands for Environmental Impact Assessment. And particularly here we're going to be looking at geology and erosion, although more broadly you're looking at ecology and climate change, but that's what we're going to be focusing on today. Just as a reminder for you, because we're here, let's complete this. Once you have looked at your factors, then you've got four main approaches that you can choose from. Do you remember which two of those tend to be more commonly chosen? It's the first one and the third one. Third one, the managed retreat. The first one is hold the line. Then once you've your approaches decided, you then decide on your methods of either hard or soft engineering, depending on the circumstances there. And finally, you've got to look at what the impacts are of that decision on both the physical and the human environment. Now, that is a lot of content there. As I say, if that's not really stuck in your head, go back to the other videos and really get on top of that, please. Right, that brings us then into the exercise with the maps. So let's have a wee look. You find this here on the Making the Decision tab. So if you come in here, there's the link to the map. You can open that map up. And then the tasks that we're going to be starting off with here are really setting the context. This is identifying the risk, looking at the geology, setting the context here. So I'm going to guide you through some of the practicalities of these. I'll give you a few tips with these and using the maps. Whenever you open the map, it should be opened to show you the whole of the UK, or the whole of England, I should say, and the erosion risk layer should be turned on. Let's look at the question. Describe, not explain, don't need any explanation, just what? Describe the variations of erosion risk around the coastline of England. Now that is a pattern identifying question. What are the patterns of erosion around the coastline in England? And then once you've got the pattern clear, you're then comparing North Norfolk with the national pattern. Let's jump into the map. I'll give you some instructions and tips for this one. Here you go. This is what you should see when you open it up. And if I turn on the legend layer, it shows me here that this is the average retreat distance in meters for medium-term timescale. If you remember, shoreline management plans will take you in the short-term, medium-term and long-term being up to a century in advance. So in the medium term, this is showing the pattern. So the first thing you need to do is look around here, the coast of England, and spot the pattern. Where is erosion concentrated more and where is there less erosion? Erosion isn't even around the coastline. There are some areas that are experiencing more erosion than others. Now, you need always in a description like this to quote figures. You've got a key here, but that might be quite hard to see what this figure is. The good news is that this is a GIS map, so you click on this and boom. There is all of the information. Now, there's a lot of information there. My goodness, there's a lot of information. Well, that's the power of GIS to present all of this information. But remember, we're looking here at the medium term. So let's scroll down here. Oh, silly me. So let's go back to this. And so scroll down here to the medium term. There it is. Retreat distance in medium term. But I'm looking for the 50% confidence, which is this one here. Now, let me just explain a little bit to you what these are showing. This is making speculation based on the evidence about the future. And it's basically the 50% confidence one is as the name suggests, you're 50% confident or sure this will happen. You're 95% sure that you'll get a 46-meter retreat, but there's a 5% chance that it'll actually be all the way up to 86 meters. But we're going to stick with the medium, the 50-50. A 50-50 chance that you're going to lose 66 meters in this part of the coastline. And if you click on any of these, you will be able to do the same thing. Just go and find them. So there is your medium, 50% confidence, 2.5 meters. Now, of course, this being a GIS map, you can zoom way in. The map will scale down for you, and you can go and have a look really at some of the detail here if you need to get the name. So this is the Holderness coastline here. You click on here, scroll on down again, medium, 50% confidence, 115 meters. This one seems a bit smaller here. Let's click on this one. And medium, 50% confidence, 33 meters. So the idea, though, remember with this, you can zoom in and have a little bit of a closer look, but the idea is the overall pattern. So you go and grab a few of those for illustrative purposes for the map. This is a core geographical skill to describe the pattern on the map. Now, the second part of the question then is compare North Norfolk with this national pattern. North Norfolk, whereabouts is it? This is North Norfolk here. This area here. So compare this area here with the national pattern. Now we'll need to come out again for your overview for this. I've just identified where that is. So is North Norfolk more at risk than typical, less at risk than typical, typically at risk? You need to make the judgment call here, not just based on what you feel or think, but the evidence. So again, you can click on here and it will give you scroll on down. Let me find the right one. Medium distance. No active intervention, 50% confidence, 75 meters. I'm going to grab a few readings from in around about there. Medium, 50%. 2.5 meters. Well, you can go in and zoom in a little bit closer. Oh yeah, I probably just picked that one by mistake. I was going for something a bit bigger. Medium, 50% confidence. Now that's a big value there, isn't it? 310 meters. So you're trying to judge around there, what is typical. I mean, there's certainly some places that have much smaller risks. I'm imagining because those are all zero, actually that's somewhere where there's no data. So just watch out for that. But other places like this, there's loads and loads of information that you can pull out there from that. So we are expecting you to really engage with that map. We're looking for lots and lots of detail from you about how that is manifesting itself. Now that brings us then to looking at the geology. So you're going to bookmark 2 and you're going to turn on the geology layer. So let's do that now. Bookmark 2 takes us into North Norfolk, and the content that we're turning on is the geology. There's the key. Now the geology of North Norfolk is relatively straightforward. It's much more complicated over here, but this is relatively straightforward. So your question here is to outline the geological setting of North Norfolk, especially the section around Cromer and to the southeast. Now, whereabouts is Cromer? Well, if you ever want to find somewhere on a GIS map, you can just use the search function up the top there. It'll take you into Cromer. Now, we've zoomed right in. We don't really know where this is, so let's zoom out, keep an eye on this. Where is Cromer? We're keeping an eye on it. Oh, right, so Cromer is there and to the southeast. Oh, yes, look at that. Again, you can click on there and, you can click on there and you can get some of the information about what this is made up of. Gravel, silt, and clay. Now, if I take you back into this is the area here that we've looked at before. Look, do you remember this slide? What do you notice in the background of this in terms of erosion risk? Look at those cliffs there. This is Haysborough. To the southeast of Cromer. Look at those cliffs there. Now you're matching it into this. Gravel, sand, silt and clay. That kind of looks exactly what that is there, doesn't it? So you're looking at that geological setting, and one of the things I would definitely like you to notice here is that where the geology changes, you've a chalk here into basically sediments that have been set down. Notice what happens to the erosion risk as you move from this bit of geology to this bit of geology. Look, move from here to here. And again, remember that seems to be an area with no data, so don't be misled by that. In these areas here, the erosion risk certainly seems to be higher. So that's the kind of thing that you need to be setting that context here and outline why this region is so vulnerable to erosion. You need to find a photograph and annotate it to show why it's so prone to erosion. You need to be finding a photograph like that basically that'll help guide you through. The next thing that we're moving on to here is protecting the environment. These tasks will help you to consider the areas of environmental sensitivity. Now remember, if we come all the way down here, your environmental impact assessment, the impacts on the local ecology. Okay, so you've got to be looking at that. So these will help you to look at how the areas of environmental sensitivity are affected. So a little bit of GIS housekeeping. Turn off the 2 layers that we have been looking at and turn on these 2 layers. Let's do that. Into the map and turn those 2 off and turn that one on and that one on. That'll draw the data down. Now the environmentally sensitive areas can sit over the top, so you can turn them off and on to see, or you can, if you want, change the transparency of this. Say take that down to, it's quite strong, so I could actually take it all the way down there and you're still seeing it. And you can see where those areas are. Okay, so your question is, with reference to your AS2 notes, you need to go back and talk about SSIs and how they protect the environment. So a little bit of digging back in those ones, you need to do that one. And then you need, here again is a mapping, describe the distribution of SSSIs around North Norfolk. So come in here, sites of special scientific interest. I'll just turn that off, and I need you to describe the distribution of them around North Norfolk. If you come in here, you can zoom around and you can find out some information. Remember, anytime you click on those, you're getting information pulled up. The only thing you really need to get there is the name of the area that's being protected. So there's some of those cliffs are being protected there, protected by environmental protection. Now that's law, right? That means that there is some kind of environmental sensitivity in this area that requires you by law to protect it. Now that is going to factor into your decision making. You need to take a look at the impacts on the local ecology. You can't just stick a seawall in there, for instance, because it's going to damage the ecology. And this is a site of special scientific interest. Remember from your AS notes what that means. Okay. So your question here is to describe the distribution there. Right, have a look at them, and in the back of your mind, you're keeping in mind why that's significant. How much of the coastline here is protected by them? Right, so you're describing that distribution, and then you're going to talk about the type of coastal management that would be preferred here. Now, by type, I'm talking in here about the methods that you'll be looking at. So which methods are going to be preferred here and why? Now, by the time you've done all of that, you will have really considered quite well these factors. What is the overall risk of flooding and erosion here? Particularly, how is geology playing out here? And what are the impacts on local ecology? What are those environmental factors that need to be taken into consideration? You've really set the context very nicely for you as you then move on to the next bit. And the next bit in your decision-making exercise will be to take a look at two particular examples of erosion. We're going to take you back to Haysborough. We've been a lot, and we're going to take you to another place in Side Strand, and you're really going to be pulling up a couple of case studies really of erosion here that factors back into this, identifying the risks of erosion and how these erosion factors take place. But what today's exercise is all about is creating that overall context for you to see and understand how this all fits together.